Hi, my name is Gabriel Dallago. I'm a PhD candidate at McGill University, and today I'm here to present a study called Giving Calves a Head Start, using artificial intelligence to evaluate the effect of birth condition on cow longevity. Cow longevity is a very complex trait. It covers the entire life of the animal. However, most studies done towards that end usually focus on only one stage of the life of the animal, and that's usually the productive life. However, when we do that, we are overlooking all early life stages of development of that animal. And then if you look at the current numbers in Canada, early life stages are roughly half of the life of the animal. The studies we do have regarding early life stages and their cow longevity provides us some evidence that there is a long-term effect. So what happens in the early life stages have an effect on cow longevity measured later in life of the animal. So we hypothesized that birth conditions has an effect on offspring longevity, and the objective of this study was to evaluate the effect of birth conditions that are commonly collected by DHI agencies on offspring longevity. LactaNet provided us with 3 indicators of a birth condition. So they were calving easy, birth size, and twin. And we had 2 measures or 2 indicators of animal longevity. Those were length of life and length of productive life. Length of life is the length of time between birth and culling. We had that information on more than 700,000 animals from more than 5,000 Quebec dairy herds. And length of productive life is the actual length of time between first calving and culling or death of the animal. We had that information on more than 500,000 animals from more than 5,000 herds. To analyze that data, we used 2 techniques. We used an artificial intelligence technique called conditional inference survival trees. The idea behind that technique is that you would automatically identify groups of animals that have similar longevity. And once we had those groups identified, we used survival analysis to estimate the odds ratio of being culled between those different groups. Now, if we jump to the results, starting on length of life, what we found is that an animal that had a large or a medium size at birth and had an unassisted birth had the highest length of life. Those animals had on average a length of life of 3.81 years. And on the other hand, animals that had a small size at birth and they were in a twin birth, they had the shortest length of life, and on average, their length of life was 2.20 years. This group also had an odds ratio of being culled of 1.52 times greater than the group with the highest length of life. And on average, they stay in the herd 1.6 years less than the animals in the highest length of life group. Now, if we look at length of productive life, what we found is that animals that had a surgery or unassisted birth and were of large or medium size at birth had the highest length of productive life, on average 2.31 years. On the other hand, animals that had some trouble in the birth, so they had a malpresentation or a pull in the birth, and they were on top of that part in a twin birth, they had the shortest length of productive life, which was on average 1.26 years for animals in that group. That group also had an odds ratio of 1.70 times greater than the animals in the group with the highest length of productive life. And on average, they stayed in the herd 1.1 years less. As take-home messages from this study, we found that there is a long-term effect of early life events on animal longevity. This goes well with the little literature we have and the little studies that we have available regarding early life events and animal longevity. We also identified that the birth conditions greatly affect the ability of the offsprings to remain in the herd, namely the 3 birth conditions that we evaluated in this study, so calving easy, birth size, and twin. And our study also provides new insights into early selection of the best candidates for replacement into a herd. I would like to acknowledge all the funding I received so far, and that made it possible for us to conduct this study. And I'll now be available for questions, and I thank you for watching this presentation.